Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries. Have an interesting addendum to my last video. I received an email from a gentleman who, claims that the Bigfoot are still in the Lake Minnewanka area. In the story I told in my last video, I kind of explained how things kind of went silent. But apparently that's not the case, so I'm going to read that email with you just so you guys know what's going on here. I just watched your YouTube video on the Lake Minnewanka Wildman. I have to tell you that it is not long gone. They're still there. This is a hot spot. If you want to see structures right on the side of the road, this is it. I have wandered this area dozens of times. I have found tracks and heard the wood knocks and whoops. And on a few occasions I've smelt them. For the past 2 years the government has had large parts of the area closed off because of whirling disease in the fish of Johnson Lake, which is just next to Lake Minnewanka. The funny thing is that they had heavily armed guards, not park rangers, nicely turn you away if you got too close. Why do you need these special armed rangers to keep people away from sick fish? The unofficial story that I have heard from multiple sources is that the big guys have always been there in this area, but they always avoided contact until about 3 years ago. A very aggressive group, or tribe, or whatever you want to call them, moved into the area around Johnson Lake, and it took them 2 years to drive them away. They reopened Johnson Lake to the public this past summer, but if you walk off any trail, there are tree structures everywhere. This is a very touristy spot, and it draws thousands of people in the summer, and it's still busy in the winter. But the Johnson Lake area does not get as much traffic come the winter. If you want an easy place to search, this is it. I take non-believers there all the time, and they always leave wondering if they are wrong not to believe. So that's the email. Pretty crazy, right? Like, if this is legitimate, it says he's heard from multiple sources unofficially that the reason, they're keeping people away, or have been keeping people away, is because there's a group of Bigfoot in the area. Now, I'm totally down to go check this place out. Like, I think that would be a great video. And apparently there's structures all over the place, so I would really like to see those. Now, the only problem is, of course, it is a very touristy spot. And, when you look at it on a map, it is like right off the highway almost. But interesting nonetheless. I wouldn't mind going there. I would like to show it to you guys, so I'm going to make that a plan, in the next little while to head down there. I'd preferably want to go in the winter, just so there's less people around and I can do my thing without being interrupted. But can you imagine, if there's a group of government people out there turning people away from certain areas because they know the Sasquatch are there? That sounds crazy. Like almost the story of a movie or something. And not just park rangers. I've seen park rangers doing their jobs, keeping people away from grizzly bear areas. They're just park rangers with, bolt action rifles. When he says heavily armed guards, I imagine more like a tactical police unit or something. But who knows? I mean, very, very interesting, and he's right though. Why would there be heavily armed guards in the area to keep people away from the lake due to whirling disease? Doesn't make a lot of sense. I could see them, having park rangers out there in the case of aggressive grizzly bears. Lots of these areas in the summertime have bad bear problems. And I don't know. I'd like to check it out for myself though. I think it'd be very interesting. So thank you, Mr. I'm not going to say your name, for this email. Very interesting. I think it would probably take me about 3 hours to get to Johnson Lake from where I live, so a little bit of a drive, but it takes me over 3 hours to get to the Alberta habituation site, so I could easily just rip down there one day. Anyways, that's that. Wildman, the Bigfoot Odysseys on realhouse.org if you want to check that out. I found this old article from 2017 of a new species of great ape that was discovered, and it's a type of orangutan. They call it the Tapanuli orangutan, and it exists in the jungles of Sumatra and Indonesia. And Indonesia's not a really big place, but they came across this orangutan because they actually found a dead body, which is interesting. After all these years, they finally in 2017 find a dead body, and they're claiming that there's probably no more than 800 of these things. So in a small area, I'm not saying it'd be easy to find one of these in a jungle, but like I said, Indonesia's not that big. So there's 800 of these things roaming around, and it took that long for one to be discovered. So, you know, it makes me think that the chances of Bigfoot existing in an area as big as, like, well, we have reports from all over North America, but, you know, we have concentrated areas like in the Pacific Northwest and in the Rocky Mountains. We get most of the reports, but, you know, that's a vast area. The Rocky Mountains and, you know, like the entire province of British Columbia, basically, and like in Washington. We're getting so many reports, and there is so much land out there. Like, if 800 of these orangutans can exist for that long, you know, they're obviously endangered. Why can't Sasquatch exist? Even if there's just 800 Sasquatch out there. I imagine like between 2 and 10,000 Sasquatch existing, like on the West Coast and in British Columbia, like basically the Pacific Northwest. I can see how they could easily stay hidden in such a vast area like that. You know, if these orangutans can do it, and these are now, you know, identified by science 100% to exist because they found one dead body, I think it's just a matter of time before we find that Bigfoot body, if it's real. I think it's totally plausible that Bigfoot can exist if this orangutan could exist and stay undetected until last year. I think that's just crazy. So I guess it's the 7th species of great ape. There's this one, the Tapanuli orangutan, Sumatran orangutan, Bornean orangutan, gorillas, chimpanzees, and bonobos. Those are the species of great apes. We're gonna put an 8th one on there, Sasquatch. But you know what's crazy is that I think, you know, if this orangutan was existing, the chances of it actually being seen before by like locals are very high. To the average person, if they seen one of these, they would just think it was any other orangutan. Like, it doesn't look that much different. They have probably been shot before, you know, and harvested without anybody really knowing. It wasn't until like scientists, you know, analyzed the body of this thing that it was made out to be another great ape, you know, like a different species. That's probably why, you know, it remained undetected for so long. Is that for so long it was probably just being misidentified as either the Sumatran or the Bornean orangutan. But anyways, still very interesting nonetheless. I'll have a link below in the description so you guys can check out the article for yourselves. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and this is an article that I actually found back in, I think it was June, and I was going to make a video of it back then, but I just never got around to it. But I think it's crazy, is of this new ghost species of chimpanzee that is apparently, you know, a thing now. It was discovered, and they call it ghost species because, you know, the animal was discovered after it went extinct through DNA analysis. Which, that whole concept I think is crazy, and it's kind of hard to wrap my head around, but basically, I'll read this segment of the article here. It says, the discovery was made when researchers compared the genomes of bonobos and common chimps, looking for strange DNA fragments that could not be explained by mutations or mating between the two. And, you know, apparently they found these anomalies in the bonobos, which suggested a third species that interbred with the ancestors of today's bonobos before dying out. So these scientists are acknowledging that this ghost species existed without even having its actual DNA. There's just fragments of it that exist in bonobos, which is insane. It says here, this new discovery is significant as it means there is yet another member of the great ape family with whom humans might share a common ancestor. Unfortunately, the DNA fragments discovered within the bonobo only amount to roughly 3% of the extinct ape's genome, making learning specifics about the new species difficult. Finding physical remains is also unlikely, because of the length of time involved. You know, if they can identify an extinct species of chimp that existed like 400,000 years ago, is what it says here, through the DNA of another species, you know, like they're acknowledging it. Like these scientists are saying that like it's a real thing, and they're calling it a ghost species. Well, if there's any ghost species out there, I think it's probably Bigfoot. And I call it a ghost species because it's incredibly hard to find and it's so elusive. Like, do we not have sufficient Bigfoot DNA? I thought there were studies being done. Like, what's the deal with the Melba Ketchum stuff? Maybe I should look into that further. I haven't really explored that too deeply, to be quite honest. If that's all we need is just a little bit of DNA, should be enough. You know, unless they're trying to suppress it from, you know, the common people. I don't know. I'm getting crazy now. I just think this story is interesting because they don't have any physical remains, yet they're able to, you know, to tell that there was another species that interbred with bonobos and chimps. We don't know what it is, we don't know what it looked like, but, you know, it existed, according to these studies. Anyways, like the previous article, the link for this one is down below. Recommend checking it out and reading yourself in so you fully understand what I'm trying to say to you guys. I don't know if I'm articulating it in a good enough manner, but I sure hope so. Anyways, on another note, marijuana is going to be legal in Canada real soon, so we can expect the amount of Sasquatch sightings to at least triple for this year. Just kidding, but, you know, crazy world. Don't forget to check out Wildman, the Bigfoot Odyssey. I hope you guys enjoyed today's topics. We'll see you next time on Mountain Beast Mysteries.